You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, and welcome to episode 217 of the Rusted Robot Podcast for Sunday, September 30th, 2018. I'm Optimus Prime. I am Locutus of Bohr. Resistance is futile. You're like a machine underneath, right? Cybernetic organism over flesh and stuff. Okay, so what's going on here? Maybe you can hear some road noise, maybe you can't. I'm not really sure what the microphone is picking up. But this is going to be a solo episode of the Rusted Robot Podcast. I'm actually driving home right now from Sault Ste. Marie. I just participated in the first annual Steel City NerdCon, hosted by Vintage Games and Junque at 165 Queen Street in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. So what's been happening? What's going on? Why are you listening to this episode? Let me explain everything to you. Hopefully the microphone is not picking up too much road noise or rain, because it's raining as I'm driving home to Timmins right now. My microphone is actually hooked up into the sunroof of the car, just swinging beside my head, so hopefully you can hear me okay. There's not going to be a lot of editing on this episode, so for any new listeners, what normally happens is we do an introduction, we play the theme tune, which is a bunch of robots and robot-related things talking about stuff robotic, and then I introduce myself and my co-hosts, and then we get right into it. However, I'm driving. It's a 5 to 6 hour drive home. I'm going to be tired later, so what I'm going to do is just put an end and a beginning on there. I'm not going to do too much editing at all because I'm going to be tired. I have laundry to do. I have to work tomorrow and all that good stuff. So this is highly atypical of a Rusted Robot episode. So if you're a new listener, and I did hand out a whole pile of business cards with the podcast information on it at NerdCon yesterday. So if you're a new listener, definitely go back and listen to some other ones for a more typical episode. This is very unusual, not anything like what you're going to be used to if you keep listening here on out. So just looking at the iPad that the microphone is hooked into, it looks like there might be a lot of road noise. Hopefully there's not. I'm going to clean that up as best as I can when I get home. So let's begin. My name is Sean Vanderloo. I host the Rusted Robot Podcast along with my good buddy Josh and a rotating crew of guest podcasters. Usually it'll be Kitty, who is Josh's wife. Now, Kitty and Josh are married. Of course, I just said that. I'm a little bit scattered because I'm trying to concentrate and drive at the same time and hope not get hit in the head by the swinging of the microphone. So, Kitty and her sister Julie own Jump City Comic Books and Collectibles in Timmins at the 101 Mall, Pine Street North Business Complex, all that good stuff. We always plug that in every episode, and normally it just flows in and we pretend that we've never heard of the comic shop before, but it's just me, so here we go. Now, who am I? I'm the main host of the Rusted Robot Podcast, which started January 1st, 2014, with my then wife, Bridget. Bridget and I did the podcast for about 90 episodes. We split up in 2015. We continued on with the podcast for a few months. Then I couldn't do it with her anymore because it was too painful. And then I stopped for about 4 months. And then Josh came on as co-host, and it's been continuing ever since. So that's a brief history of the podcast. More information about Bridget can actually be found at the other podcast that I host called Soul Forge Podcast. Episode 68 just came out last week, and it is called The Bridget Episode, and it details the history of our relationship. So for any Rusted Robot listeners who ever wondered what happened to Bridget, that's the episode for you. Now, most people that listen to Rusted Robot also listen to Soul Forge, so you know all the details, which is great. let's see, what else can I tell you about? We're on the ESO network, which is a network of geeky podcasts, and I normally play a promo for one of the shows on that network. Not sure I'll have time when I'm doing the editing, but if I do, I will play that here. But they've got all kinds of different podcasts. We podcast and we know things. They've got a Doctor Who one. They've got the Earth Station 1 podcast, which is actually the flagship podcast of ESO Network. I can't even think of all the names right now because I'm driving, but Soul Forge is on there, and we've got Here Be Tigers, we've got Flopcast, we've got Pop Culture Cosmos, and a bunch of other ones. All kinds of geeky stuff. So if you are into geeky stuff, and I know anybody that was at NerdCon is definitely into nerdy and geeky things, then check out ESO Podcast Network. What else can I tell you? Let's talk a little bit about this whole road trip that I'm on right now. I left Timmins Friday after work. I'm a mailman, so normally I would have to do my sort and then delivery, but they let me go after my sort, which was cool. So I left Timmins about 11:30, got into the Sioux about, I think, 5 o'clock, so 5.5 hours. Took the 101 highway to the 129 to the 17 and made it into town. And right now I'm on the 129. I just passed Beals Lake, which was an old campground that the family used to go to quite a bit. And about a half an hour ago, when I was on Highway 17, I passed 3 horse and carriages because it's Amish country over there. That's nice to see. Lots of farms and whatnot. So let's think here. Geek stuff that's happened in the last week. I'm kind of out of the loop a little bit, but you may have seen that James McAvoy has offered to play a young Captain Picard in the Patrick Stewart Captain Picard series that's going to be on CBS All Access eventually, maybe next year. I don't know when it's coming out. Nobody does. But James McAvoy, of course, played Professor X in the reimagined X-Men series. So he's a little bit older now, but I think he can still pull it off pretty well. That'd be all right. James McAvoy is a fun actor. Kind of reminds me of, what's his name? Gordon-Levitt? James Gordon-Levitt? Joseph Gordon? No, it's Joseph. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and James McAvoy are pretty much the same person to me half the time. So that's either one can play it. I think it'd be fine. I like those guys. They're great. Also, what happened is the trailer for the new Transformers movie, the Bumble Bee film, came out this week. I've not posted it on the Rusted Robot Facebook page or the group page. I haven't actually seen the trailer for it either. I almost hit a dead raccoon just now. But no, I haven't seen the trailer for Bumblebee, but I have talked to people who have seen it, and they think it's really great. So once I get home and settled and have this uploaded, I'm going to watch it. Normally I would put the trailer in for it here, but I'm not going to have time for any of that stuff. So if you've seen the trailer, why don't you tweet your opinions to me at The Rusted Robot on Twitter, or join the Facebook page, join the Facebook group if you haven't. Just look up The Rusted Robot or The Rusted Robot Podcast, and we share a lot of links there, all the episode links and all that good stuff. If you'd like to go to our website, it's therustedrobot.podbean.com. All of our episodes are right there. And of course, we're on Stitcher and TuneIn and Apple Podcasts or iTunes or whatever they're calling it these days. If you are enjoying the sound of my voice and would like some more personal stories, this is where I now plug my other podcast, The Soul Forge. Soul Forge is on Spotify and iTunes and Stitcher and all that good stuff. SoulForgePodcast.com. And on that show, what I do is, it's not really a geeky show, but I talk about all kinds of things that people don't talk about in order to get at the heart of issues, bring them up, and get a dialogue going. And I've talked about divorce, I've talked about death, I've talked about anger and happiness, I've talked about so many different things. I've interviewed people from all over the place. There was a guy in Australia that I interviewed. He's an aspiring rapper named Muggsy, so I talked to him. I talked to a lady, I believe she's in San Diego, and her name is Lauren Nicole Peters, but at the time that I was talking to her, she had changed her name to Meditara, and she's like a sexy earth mother goddess kind of girl. She's right into the whole spirituality thing. She was really fascinating to talk to, so check those episodes out. What else do I talk about? Well, like I said, episode 68 just came out, and I talked about the entire history of my relationship from start to finish with Bridget. Before that, Tracy and I, my sometimes co-host, we talked about Halloween and other podcasting and other kinds of things. Sometimes I have a co-host on that show, sometimes it's just me talking about whatever, kind of like I'm doing right now. It's very rare for a Roasted Robot not to have a co-host, and I almost didn't have an episode this week, but then I thought about it, and I'm driving, and I have all this time, and normally when I'm driving I'm listening to other podcasts, because I love to listen to podcasts, and I do podcasts, and it's all fun. But here I've got all this time, I've got 5 hours to kill. It's not going to be a 5-hour podcast. Normally Rusted Robot runs, give or take, an hour. This might be shorter because it's just me, and I'm going to run out of things to say. But, let's see what else I can tell you. I'm not even sure. I'm just trying to make sure there's not a lot of pauses between my words so that I don't have to do any editing, because I'm not going to have time, like I said. So, back to Soul Forge. Check it out. It's fun, it's exciting, a lot of embarrassing stories on there, and that's pretty much it. If it's basically an excuse for me to talk about stupid things I've done because of girls, that's a lot of episodes. I'm going to be starting up a new podcast, and my third podcast, with a guy named Seamus, and he does 8 solo podcasts, and this one is coming up. We haven't recorded yet because I've been super busy with life and all kinds of fun things. That's going to be called the Classic Original Show. I'm hoping we're going to start recording either this week or next week. What else? So I talked about the Bumble Bee trailer. I talked about James McAvoy. I think on the Facebook page or group, because there's two. There's a page and a group. Join both. I shared something about sex with robots, but I hadn't read the article, so I can't talk about it. But that's going to be a thing in the future, folks. Sex with robots, because there's no emotional attachment, unless you get an emotional attachment, like the guy did in the movie Cherry 2000 from 1987, which we reviewed on episode 16 of Rusted Robot. So, now, let's talk about Steel City NerdCon, hosted by Mike from Vintage Games and Junque on Queen Street in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Now, as most of you know, I am from Sault Ste. Marie, or the Sioux as we call it. Born and raised there till I was about 19, and then I went to Nipissing University in North Bay for university. And I lived there off and on from 1995 until 2003, when I moved up to Timmins, and I've been in Timmins ever since. Timmins, the land that culture forgot. Very exciting. I had to create my own podcast and get culture going. There is an expo there that's been running for 8 or 9 years, and I'm on the board for that. We have the Klingon group as well up in Timmins. Karen is our leader, our captain. It's called CAG, or Crimson Assault Group, and we are the Crimson Dawn chapter. And if you want to be a cosplayer, start your own group or join the CAG. I think it's CAG.org, and there's a chapter in Toronto, and there's one in Sudbury that we started. Actually, we went to Sudbury for Graphicon in June, and the Klingons and I did a road trip podcast there as well. So I think we've done 3 car podcast. This is the third one. The Klingons was the second one. And the episode 18, Bridget and I did as a memorial tribute to my mom on the way back from that funeral week, which was a very sad time. But getting into more exciting and happy news, I don't have any celebrity deaths of the week that I've come across. Of course, I've been on a pop culture blackout maybe because I've been doing all kinds of things, getting ready for NerdCon. So anyway, back to NerdCon. It's the first annual one. It was hosted in the warehouse behind the store, and it was a fun time. It was from noon to 6, Saturday, September 29th, which was yesterday as I'm recording this. And I think Mike said that there were 31 vendors. Rob Sacchetto was there, and you may know him from previous episodes of the podcast when I did wrap-ups of the NOE, Northern Ontario Expo, Comic-Con Timmins. He's the zombie portrait guy. He had the table beside me. Talked to him a bit. That was fun. It's always good to see a familiar face. And actually, my table was in the corner of the warehouse, and with me at the table was my brother Robin and his friend Whit. Robin and Whit actually co-host a podcast together called the Space Jam Podcast, as longtime listeners will know. And normally when I make it to the Sioux for a weekend, the three of us get together and we do a crossover episode. And we didn't have time this weekend because Robin has just moved into a new place. He's not quite finished. He had to get his toys that he was selling at the expo, at the con, ready. Whit had to work. So it didn't happen. We didn't do a crossover podcast, which was unusual for us. And that's why I'm recording one here now by myself solo on the way to Timmins, Ontario, the land that culture forgot. Look at me repeating myself all the time. Oh, I'm going into a construction zone now. I have to slow down to 60 and do not pass. Okay, so let's see what's happening here. Doesn't look like there's anybody in the road area. There's no actual construction. A lot of orange flags and caution signs and whatnot. And there are some green lights saying I can go, but by the time I get there, it's probably going to turn orange. And it has turned orange, so now I have to wait probably 2 minutes until the lights turn green. So I'm going to stop the car right here at the line for the red lights. The road noise has stopped. I can see by looking at the iPad that's recording everything. Hopefully the road noise is not too distracting for you. Hopefully you've made it this far. I've got all my road trip snacks ready. I had my Tim Hortons coffee and my Farmer's Wrap breakfast thing and a hash brown, which was delicious. I think I still have some coffee left. Let me see if it's still warm. Hang on. That's the sound of me drinking coffee. And there's not much left, and it's cooling off. But I've got water. I've got Timbits, which for non-Tim Hortons lovers is... Oh, there goes a truck past me. Non-Tim Hortons lovers are, I think in the United States, they're called donut holes. They're little small donuts, really. And it's something that I shouldn't be having at 9 and 10 in the morning. It's 10:07. It's 4 degrees Celsius outside, which is probably 36 or 7 Fahrenheit. So it's cold out. It's raining. The light just turned green. I'm going again. Why am I narrating my life? Because I'm on a road trip, folks. And that's what you do when you're road trip podcasting. And one day, I'm going to get an actual headset or something so that it blocks out the road noise, and I can do all kinds of road trip podcasts. It'll be very exciting. So back to podcasting. I was talking about SoulForge. I was talking about NerdCon, and just to plug SoulForge again, if you haven't listened or subscribed, I would suggest that you do. You can do it, like I said, on Spotify and iTunes, Stitcher. There's other apps and stuff that you can do it with as well. Episode for this week that I haven't recorded yet is episode 69, and of course it's going to be all about sex, because what else could I make it about other than that for that episode number, right? So go subscribe, go to soulforgepodcast.com, listen to all the other episodes. some friends of mine have recently started listening to it and are learning quite a bit about me. It's all about things that you don't normally talk about, and I'm trying to get a dialogue going. And join the Facebook. It's just a page. It's not a group. I have a page and a group for Rusted Robot, but just a page with the links and all the positivity memes and funny things for SoulForge. Alright, so back to NerdCon. It was yesterday, and there was, I think I said 31 booths. It was $5 admission for people to get in. The VIPs, I think they paid extra, got in at 11:30, so they had a half an hour preview of all the good stuff that we had for sale. And a lot of people were selling video games. There was some anime stuff. Not a lot of action figure sales, actually. I had action figures. I had a Battlestar Galactica Cylon statue that people looked at but nobody bought. I had my Hot Toys Battle Damaged Ed 209 for sale for $250, and everybody looked at it. Finally, near the end of the day, somebody actually bought it. So that was good. I had that since I think 2007. It was sad to see it go, but really it takes up a lot of space, and I've enjoyed it for 10 or a dozen years. So that went. My original series bridge set of the crew from 1993 from Playmate Toys, that sold. I think I sold that to Mike, the owner of Vintage Games and Junque, along with my set of 7 Sequest DSV action figures that I've had for a dozen years as well. Oh, I'm going to hit this crow. No, he flew away. Okay, so that's another thing. I don't see a lot of animals whenever I road trip. People always say, oh, I saw this bear, I saw this moose, I saw this deer. I never see anything. It's maybe 1 out of every 25 road trips that I'll see an animal, except for birds, of course. I see birds all the time, and that dead raccoon about 20 minutes ago. But back to NerdCon. Can you tell I'm a little bit distracted and trying not to die as I'm driving here? The leaves are all changing color. It's very pretty. I wish you could see this. If this was a video podcast, you would be amazed by the scenery, rocks and trees and things. I should get a dash cam. And, speaking of dash cams, I can put things up on the YouTube channel. And did you know, as a matter of fact, the podcast, well, me personally, I guess, has a YouTube channel that you can find by just searching out my name. So do that and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can listen to the podcast on YouTube. It's just the background art for the episode. There's no moving images or anything like that. But if you're surfing around online anyway and you just need some stuff in the background to listen to, why not listen to the SoulForge podcast and the Rusted Robot podcast on a second window on your computer screen? To do that, what you do is just look up my name, Sean Vanderloo. Let me spell it for you. ShawnVanderloo. So look up my name on YouTube, find the channel, subscribe to the channel, and you, my friends, can listen to, I believe, all the SoulForge episodes are on there, and all the episodes of Rusted Robot since, I think, 151 maybe are on there as well. So that's good. Like and subscribe, share the episode links, tell your friends, do all that good stuff. It's appreciated. Also appreciated, I always ask for 5-star reviews in the iTunes store. That would be good, because it gets the word spread and stuff. Apparently, I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't looked into it. But I could always use more listeners. So, NerdCon. Sold a few $100s worth of things. I bought some laser discs from the Rad Zone table. As many of you know, I am a collector of obsolete technology. I'm actually a collector of so many different things. That's why I've decided to thin out the collection, sell them. Oh, I can't even talk. Oh, look at the fog in the trees. That's pretty. Okay, so I'm trying to thin out my collection. I've got so many totes of stuff. Actually, my brother Robin, he was selling some stuff because he was moving his things, and he's like, I've got so much crap, why do I have all this junk? So him and I are pretty similar. He's 32, I'm 42. We have a brother, Curtis, who's in the middle of us. He is going to be 38 this year. What else? Robin and I are big-time collectors and podcasters. Curtis does not do any of that stuff, and he's probably better off for it because I've moved a lot, Robin moves enough, and all you have to do is haul this garbage around with you all the time. So it's time to thin it out, keep the good things that really mean a lot, like all my Hallmark ornaments, my Star Trek ornaments that I've been collecting since 92 or 93. So there were no Hallmark ornaments for sale at NerdCon, but I did, like I said, get some laser discs. I picked up a laser disc player in 2009 from a yard sale in Timmins. I paid $30 for the player and I believe 70 movies. So I bought 5 movies yesterday at the booth. I know I got Dragonheart and I got Bambi. I believe I have The Secret of Nim, and I think 2 more Disney movies, because who doesn't like Disney movies? And if you can get them on Laserdisc, that they're rare and hard to find because they stopped making Laserdiscs, I think in 2001. I can't remember. I did some research on them one time, but that's too long ago, and I'm distracted. And I'm on this really rough, bumpy road, and I see that the iPad is picking it up because I'm driving along this river here. It says it's 80 kilometers an hour, but it's kind of twisty and turny and up and down like a roller coaster, and the road is not as smooth as it should be. Oh, I got to a smooth part now. Let's see, I'm passing LaFaux Creek, and I'm really getting into the heart of the twisty, turny part, and it's scary. And you have blind curves, and you crest these hills, and you go straight down. And there's a lot of transports on this part of the highway. I haven't seen any yet. It's actually no traffic at all, except for that one guy that passed me at the construction light. But it is 10:16 Sunday morning, so that could explain why there's hardly any traffic. Back to NerdCon and the report that I'm giving you. Let's see, we had the video game guys, we had Rob Succhetto, we had the Rad Zone, we had a guy who makes things out of resin, and I talked to him quite a bit. He's a cool guy. What else did they have? There was some other artists. They had some cool paintings. This one guy, he was picking up all the pictures that he could find of Da Vinci's The Last Supper, you know, with Jesus and the apostles, and they're all there. But what he did was he took a bunch of the people in the picture and he painted over like superhero things. Like there was one of the apostles had an Iron Man mask on, somebody had a Batman cape on. It was pretty cool. I almost bought it, but it was $100, and I was like, well, it goes with my theme of things, but I really don't need it. But it was cool. It was a cool idea, and he had a bunch of different things like that. So, what else do we have? I don't know. It's hard to remember. It was really cold in there because the bay doors were open for the garage warehouse thing, and the concrete floor was cold as heck. And so I was cold and tired all day. But I did some good business, sold some things, bought some laser discs. Oh, and I got a vinyl record soundtrack, Eddie and the Cruisers 2. Have you ever heard of the movie Eddie and the Cruisers, or Eddie and the Cruisers 2? It was one of my favorite movies that I watched all the time as a kid. Not too many people have heard of it, but it was a lot of fun. I liked it. So now I've got all these records. I don't have a record player. I'm on the search for one of those. What else? Oh, here's a car passing me. Oh, there he goes. It was a Volkswagen. Oh, and there's a truck. It's a Chevy. That was an SUV of some kind. So I'm actually surprised I saw any traffic. And now you know what it was. Are you excited? This is probably the most unusual and interesting podcast that I've ever recorded. Like I said earlier, Robin and Whit and I were going to do a podcast crossover episode. We were actually going to do a
live stream from the con, because Robin had brought his laptop and microphone with him, but it was so busy, there was no time to do it. What else? Robin, my brother, he knows everybody in town. There were so many people that stopped by to say hey and talk to him and look at his stuff that he was selling, and they're all like, oh, so that's your brother Sean that you've been talking about. So they've all heard of me. Some of them have actually listened to the podcast before, which is cool. It's always fun to meet a listener. I must have handed out a few dozen podcast cards as well at the con, and some people just picked them up off the table. So maybe we'll have some new listeners joining our crew. And if you're a new listener and you have specific geeky topics or stories from the con or anything that you'd like to talk about, remember you can follow us on Twitter at The Rusted Robot, tweet us your stories, or just email us therustedrobot@gmail.com. Like I said, Robin and Whit do the Space Jam podcast, all about wrestling and booze, entertainment, comic books, random geeky things, and so on and so forth. I don't know if they're actually recording something this weekend to put out as well, because they claim that they're the longest running podcast in Northern Ontario. Of course, they've only been going for 2 and a bit years. Rusted Robot's been going for almost 5, but they've done theirs every single week without pause, and I haven't on this one because life happens and you can't always do those things. But anyway, regardless, this is a podcast that is free and you can listen to it, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope the road noise is not too loud. And Mike from Vintage Games and Junque is planning on a second NerdCon next year, although he said probably August because it'll be warmer and it's something fun to do in the summer. So I'm going to come back for that one next year. I'll probably have another podcast report in a year from now for you about that. What else? I don't know. I had a train of thought, but I'm losing it because this road is crazy. I wish I had this dash cam, and then you can see it on YouTube. That you're going to join, right, guys? You're going to look up the name Sean Vanderloo and go to YouTube. And in fact, why don't you pause the recording, or don't pause it, just go to YouTube right now from your smartphone, or if you're on your computer, go to YouTube, look it up, subscribe, join, follow, share, all that stuff. And then, since you're doing that, if you have, I know for sure if you have an iPhone, I'm not 100% sure about Android, but if you go to, from your phone on your browser, you go therustedrobot.podbean.com, you can actually add the Rusted Robot Quick Launch app to your phone. So if you're on Wi-Fi, you can go ahead and listen to any episode at any time. You'll get the little image of the Rusted Robot on your screen, and it's there. And you can listen to my voice and my co-host voice anytime that you want. And isn't that exciting? You can have your own personal Rusted Robot app. The logo of the Rusted Robot is a robot, of course, and it was designed by my buddy Andrew, who lives in Sault. We saw him yesterday. I made him come to the con so I could see him. And on one of the early episodes of Rusted Robot, we decided that the logo, the mascot, the robot, his name is Rivet Oxide the Third, so we just call him Rivet for short. And when we see a movie and we review it, we give it so many rivets out of 10. So last week, a couple of us went to see the Predator movie, and we gave it about 6.5 rivets out of 10. It was okay. It wasn't the best. It was serviceable. Shouldn't have paid $14 in a luxury theater for it, but it was okay. Venom comes out this week, actually. I'm not holding out too much hopes for that, but it might be good. You never know. You can't tell. Tom Hardy, who of course we know as Shinzon from Star Trek Nemesis 2002 when he played the clone of Patrick Stewart's Picard. So that would actually be interesting. Let's get a movie going where we have Patrick Stewart Joseph Gordon-Levitt, James McAvoy, and Tom Hardy all playing versions of the same character. How awesome would that be? And since Joseph Gordon-Levitt played a younger version of Bruce Willis in the film Looper, why don't we go ahead and add Bruce Willis to the mix? That would be super cool. He could play a more buff, slightly younger version of Patrick Stewart's character. And maybe the three younger actors could play kids, or clones, or something. I don't know. I'm not a screenwriter. I wish I was. That would be awesome. But anyway, looking forward to next year's NerdCon. Looking forward to going to Thunder Bay in a month, because they're going to have, in Thunder Bay, they're having ThunderCon, which is, I believe, the weekend of October 27th, 28th. It's that weekend, whatever that weekend actually is. Maybe the 28th, 29th. Not sure. I don't have a calendar and I can't look at it anyway because I'm driving. But me and the Klingons are traveling there. It's a 9-hour drive from Timmins to Thunder Bay. We're going to be featured guests, the IKV Crimson Dawn, the Klingon Assault Group cosplayers. We're going to have our head ridges and our costumes. And I am also hosting a podcast panel because one of the organizers of the event saw that I had posted something about the Klingons and being at Steel City NerdCon selling my stuff, and the lady, we're friends on Facebook. Is it Heather? I think it's Heather. She said, "Oh, you should come to ThunderCon," and I said, "Yeah, I'm already coming to ThunderCon with the Klingons." She's like, "Oh, that's you. That's great. How would you like to host a podcast panel?" And I'm like, "I've never hosted a panel before. I don't know what it's involved, but I would love to, because I can introduce podcasting to people, talk a little bit about it, tell my story behind it. I could actually hand out some podcast business cards, get some more listeners. It's all about getting listeners and spreading the geek word. Have you heard the word of the robot? Yes, you have. You're hearing it right now. So that's my plan for the end of October. A lot of traveling this year. It's fun though. Who doesn't like a good road trip? And road trip snacks. Got my beef jerky and my pork rinds and my coffee and my Timbits. And there goes a trailer passing me. So that's fun. I bet he's finishing up his camping weekend. What else can I tell you? The microphone is swinging back and forth, and sometimes it's hitting the cord. So if you're hearing little clicks once in a while, it's probably that. It could be the windshield wiper blades that you're hearing. It could be the road noise. It could be the shake in my voice as I'm on this crazy, crazy road. I don't really know what you're hearing. Hopefully, when I upload it to Audacity and normalize it, most of that stuff will come out so you're hearing my words. Because my words are the word of Rivet the Robot. I don't know why I'm talking like that. Can't really say. But anyway, NerdCon was a success. I know Mike said that he got way more guests and visitors than he expected. All the vendors showed up that had paid for tables. So he considers it a success. I think it was a success. It was so busy in there. The Brothers podcast crossover event couldn't happen because there was no time. But we had fun. And other than that, can't really think of anything else. I'm about 38 minutes into this recording. Who knows how long it'll be once I put a beginning and an end on it. But anyway, that's it for this week. I believe this was episode 217. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you were able to listen to it and catch most of what I was saying. So just a reminder, look up my name, Sean Vanderloo, on YouTube. Join the YouTube channel, subscribe to it, share the links, tell your friends. Join the Facebook group for the Rusted Robot podcast. Join the Facebook page for the Rusted Robot. Check out my other podcast, Soulforge, and its Facebook page and its website, soulforgepodcast.com. And is there anything else that I have to plug? I don't think that there is. Oh, you can follow me on Twitter 3 different ways, actually. My personal one is at Darth Vaderloo. That's at Darth Vader LOO, because it's kind of like Vanderloo, but I mean Vaderloo, took out the N, put on an LOO. So there you go. I'm personally at Darth Vaderloo. I'm also at Soulforge Pod and at The Rusted Robot. And the YouTube and all that good stuff. So hopefully this was somewhat coherent. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think by either tweeting or emailing, or even just going to the Facebook page and writing a comment on the episode link. Oh hey, I'm also on Instagram. I forgot to say that. Instagram is also at Darth Vaderloo. Follow me there for all kinds of pictures. I do a lot of pictures of collectibles and positivity memes, which you can also find on the Soulforge podcast page. And other than that, this is where I leave you because I need to go listen to some more podcasts, and then I'm going to be home and I'll edit this slightly. I'm not editing the bulk of it, so if there's pauses or clicks or breath sounds, those will all be in there. It's going to be raw. I'm just going to add an end and a beginning. And until next time, I'll talk to you next week for a more traditional episode. Thanks for joining me on this road trip journey. We'll talk soon. Take care. And remember, if it bleeds, we can kill it. This has been another episode of the Rusted Robot Podcast. You can contact us by emailing therustedrobot@gmail.com or tweeting us at therustedrobot. Visit our website at therustedrobot.podbean.com. And, if you would, please check us out and like us on Facebook. A 5-star review in iTunes is appreciated. The Rusted Robot Podcast was written, produced, scored, edited, engineered, and directed by Sean Vanderloo. Your co-host was Josh Montney. Don't forget to visit Jump City Comics in the 101 Mall and listen to our other show, the Soulforge Podcast. Visit Sean on Twitter and Instagram at Darth Vaderloo.
The Rusted Robot Podcast. Think about it.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping through Amazon.com or the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.